All right, commercial real estate risk factors, and there's several here, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of them that's kind of top of mind, why don't you dig into it, and that's interest rates. So talk a little bit about that.
So interest rates, obviously it's the cost to borrow money,
Right.
And typically it's nowhere near the same as when you're buying a home.
Right.
So typically the term for an interest rate is 5 to 7 years when you're buying a commercial asset. And one of the risks there is that after that 5 to 7 years, your rate's going to open up and it could increase payments significantly.
Yeah. So as an example, right? If we went back 5 to 7 years ago, depending on when you're watching this video, let's just say it's 2020, and in 2025, you might have got that interest rate at 3, and now you're getting it at 6. Well, you just doubled the debt because really within the first 5 years, you didn't have much principal pay down, right? You're just getting to the principal pay down now. And so your interest rate payments may have doubled, which now squeezed the value of your asset because it's a multiple on your net operating income, right? And so now the bank may say, hey, listen, Jonathan, I know I lent you $20 million, but now that the interest rate's doubled, actually, I'm only going to give you 15 now, right? Or 12. You've got to go and bridge that gap on that $8 million with your investor group. Well, that's going to be a problem, and that's why you see a lot of this default debt taking place, especially in office, which I think is a perfect transition to vacancy and demand risk. So you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I bring up often is that there's not as many business owners out there as there are people looking to move into a home. So when you own a commercial asset that relies on tenants, there's some risk in that. There's not going to be 1,000 people lining up at your door to sign a lease.
Right.
So you have to, and you also have to vet these tenants much harder too to make sure they're going to be able to perform and pay that debt. So pay those leases.
Yeah, and one of the things we consult our consumers on is what is the typical vacancy timeline that you have in these properties. So if you have a multi-tenant place, vacancy is a little bit less of a risk because you may have, right now, one of our assets, we had one of the tenants move out. Well, he represents about 15% of the total square footage. And yes, I would prefer to monetize that 15%, but I'm not digging into the negative right now.
Yes.
But if you have a single user building and that tenant moves out, you got to make sure you have enough reserves to carry for 6, 8, 9, 12 months. You almost never hear, unless it's ultra luxury, of a property sitting on the market for 12 months without someone moving into it, aka a tenant, essentially, right? And in the commercial space, it's very common. It's very common to have a 12-month, and that's one of the things we consult you on. And then obviously with demand risk, like society just changes over time, right? Politics change things over time, which will transition into our next thing. But office right now is being repurposed. A lot of office space is being repurposed because you still have about a third of the population working from home at the end of the day, which means you need a third less office space in the world, right?
Yeah,
and some of these communities like Troy, Southfield, their whole thing was built around office, right?
Absolutely.
And so, that really, those owners are really feeling the squeeze right now. Yeah. And then now we have kind of politics, and there's obviously one thing very specific right now, and that's tariffs. You want to dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, so tariffs are obviously, they were put in place to make our country richer, but they are posing a little bit of a burden on cost to produce, which actually passes down to these commercial asset owners, and it just creates, it keeps that risk looking a little tough.
Yeah, it's tough. So like in the industrial space, here's the way to think about tariffs. Tariffs are a tax, right? Well, a tax is going to be who's paying that tax. In the consumer world, sales tax, the consumer pays. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, employment tax, the employer pays, right? So tariffs are a tax, and then based on the industry you're in, based on the companies, it's who's going to eat that tax. Some of these countries have decided, well, we're just going to eat that tax and we'll write the check, right? Well, some of these businesses is like, well, no, I buy steel from China. There's 1 million buyers of steel. I'm going to have to eat that tax because the supplier's not going to eat it. The country's not going to eat it. So then it rolls down to the operator. Well, now the operator's net operating income is in the toilet, making them less viable as a tenant, right? So there's a lot of risks when it comes to tariffs, and tomorrow the tariffs might be double, tomorrow the tariffs might not be here at all, right? And so it's just it's a problem in the industrial space especially, and then of course some type of retail places. So there's always going to be some type of problem. There's always some things that are changing. You need to build that into your risk profile of what you're interested in, and that's one of the things we help consult you with. So if you have any other questions about commercial risk factors, go ahead and reach out. We'd love to chat with you.